Thanks for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the story, consider subscribing and feel free to like the video or drop a comment below. It really helps the algorithm recommend these videos to you and to others who might enjoy them too. Either way, thanks for giving it a chance, and I hope it pulls you in. I do not know if Kira is real. I do not know if I am real anymore. I am writing this from a hospital room in Fairbanks, and there are people watching me through the window in my door, and I cannot tell if they are doctors or something else wearing doctor faces. But I need to tell someone what happened at Keller Outpost. I need someone to understand, even if no one believes me. Maybe especially if no one believes me. I am a wildlife biologist. My name is Nate Lawson, and I am 32 years old, or at least I was 32 when this started. 3 weeks ago, I was stationed at a remote research facility in northern Alaska, about 100 miles from the nearest town. We were studying caribou migration patterns, tracking herds across the tundra, doing the kind of quiet scientific work that no one thinks about until they need to know something about caribou. It was lonely work, isolating work, but I had always preferred solitude to crowds. That was before I learned what can hide in the silence. There were 3 of us at Keller Outpost. Me, Dr. Warren Holt, and a graduate student named Kira Vasquez. Warren was in his 50s, a veteran of Arctic research who had spent more winters above the Arctic Circle than most people spend anywhere. He had a grey beard and tired eyes, and a way of speaking that made everything sound reasonable, even when it was not. He had seen everything the Arctic could throw at a person, survived blizzards and equipment failures and long dark months that drove other researchers to breakdowns. Nothing fazed him. At least, that is what I thought. Kira was in her late 20s, working on her dissertation, eager and smart and not yet worn down by the isolation the way the rest of us were. She had dark hair that she kept in a practical braid and a laugh that could fill the whole station. She was the one who kept our spirits up during the long dark months, who suggested game nights and movie marathons and anything to break the monotony. I liked her. We all did. It was mid-January, deep in the polar night. The sun had not risen in weeks and would not rise for weeks more. We lived in perpetual darkness, broken only by the aurora and the pale glow of twilight that passed for noon, a few hours of grey light around midday that was not really daylight at all. The cold was constant and brutal, 40 below on good days, colder when the wind picked up, the kind of cold that kills you in minutes if you make a mistake, that freezes exposed skin in seconds, that turns every trip outside into a calculated risk. The nearest town was Coldfoot, 100 miles south, and we could only reach it by helicopter or snowmobile when the weather cooperated. Most of the time, the weather did not cooperate. We were alone out there, truly alone. 3 people in a metal box in the middle of an endless white void. I had been at the station for 3 months when the first alert came through. I was on the radio that evening, trying to reach the supply depot in Coldfoot to confirm our next delivery. We were running low on some essentials, and I wanted to make sure the helicopter would be coming on schedule. The radio had been acting up for weeks. Solar activity, Warren said. Interference from the aurora and the magnetic weirdness of being so far north. Most of the time, We could get through eventually if we kept trying. I was adjusting the frequency, listening to the static, when the transmission cut out and was replaced by that harsh emergency broadcast tone. The sound made me sit up straight, my heart suddenly pounding. You hear that sound and your body reacts before your mind catches up, some primal response to an alarm that means danger. The signal was weak, breaking up, fighting through whatever interference had been plaguing our communications. I pressed the headphones tight against my ears, straining to hear. I caught fragments. Shelter in place. Do not open doors. Do not trust. And then a word I did not understand at first. A word that made no sense in the context of an emergency broadcast. Mimics. Then static. Then nothing. I tried to call back, tried to get clarification, tried to reach anyone on any frequency. But the radio was dead. Just that soft hiss of empty air that sounds like the universe breathing. That white noise of nothing that seems louder the longer you listen to it. I found Warren and Kira in the common room, playing cards to pass the time. The common room was the heart of the station, a space with a table and chairs, a small kitchen area, a couch that had seen better days, and windows that showed nothing but darkness this time of year. They looked up when I came in, probably reading the expression on my face.
"What is wrong?"
Kira asked. I told them what I had heard, repeating the fragments as best I could remember them. Warren listened with a frown, then shook his head. "Radio's been acting up for weeks," he said. "Solar activity. Plays hell with communications this far north. You probably picked up some broadcast from Russia, got it all scrambled." "It was in English," I said. "Clear English. It mentioned shelter in place. It said something about mimics." "Mimics?" Kira set down her cards. "What does that mean?" "I do not know. The signal cut out before I could hear the rest." Warren shrugged. That dismissive gesture I had seen him make 100 times when someone brought up a concern he thought was overblown. Probably some kind of test or interference from another station. Nothing to worry about. The Arctic plays tricks on equipment and minds alike. You will learn that the longer you're up here. I wanted to believe him. Warren had been doing this for 30 years. He knew the Arctic, knew its tricks, knew how isolation could make your mind play games. If he said it was nothing, it was probably nothing. We went back to our evening routine. Dinner, cards, a movie on the old television that only got 3 channels and none of them well. Normal stuff. Safe stuff. But that night, I heard something outside the station. I was in my bunk, trying to sleep, when the sound started. At first, I thought it was wind. The wind out here makes sounds you would not believe, howling and screaming and sometimes almost speaking, forming words out of nothing but air and snow. I had gotten used to it over the months, had learned to tune it out the way you tune out traffic noise in a city. But this was different. This sounded like footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The unmistakable sound of boots on packed snow circling the station. Slow and deliberate, like someone was walking around the perimeter, checking for ways in. I lay in my bunk and listened, my heart beating too fast, my breath too loud in the silence. The footsteps went all the way around the station, then stopped. I got up and went to the window and looked out, but there was nothing to see. just darkness, the faint green glow of the aurora on the horizon, the endless white expanse of the tundra stretching away into nothing. No figure, no movement, no sign that anyone had been there at all. Then I heard a voice. Nate, my name, called from outside, clear as anything, cutting through the wind and the walls and the double-pane glass. A voice I recognized. Nate, come outside. It sounded like Warren. Exactly like Warren. With his slight southern accent and his deep rumble of a voice, the voice I had heard every day for 3 months, the voice of my supervisor and colleague, and the closest thing I had to a friend out here. But Warren was asleep. I could hear him snoring through the thin walls of the station, that familiar chainsaw sound he made every night. He was in his bunk, not outside in the killing cold. Nate, I need your help. Come outside. I stood at that window for what felt like hours, frozen, unable to move, unable to look away from the darkness where nothing moved but something spoke with my friend's voice. The voice kept calling, kept asking me to come outside, kept saying things in Warren's voice that Warren could not be saying. Eventually, the voice stopped. The footsteps did not return. The night went quiet except for the wind and Warren's snoring and the pounding of my own heart. I did not sleep at all that night. In the morning, I told Warren and Kira what I had heard. We were sitting around the table eating breakfast, the same breakfast we ate every morning, oatmeal and coffee and reconstituted eggs that tasted like cardboard. Warren laughed when I finished, but there was less conviction in it than before. Cabin fever, he said. It happens to everyone, eventually. Your mind starts playing tricks after enough time in the dark. The Arctic is full of sounds that seem like voices, shapes that seem like people. I once spent a whole week convinced I could hear my ex-wife nagging me from outside the station. Every night, clear as day, telling me I forgot to take out the trash. He smiled at his own joke, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Kira was quiet. She was staring down at her coffee, her hands wrapped around the mug for warmth, and when she looked up, her face was pale. I heard something too, she said. Last night, around 3 in the morning, scratching at my window like fingernails on glass. I told myself it was ice or wind or a branch if there were any branches out here. But it sounded like someone was trying to get in. We all looked at each other across the breakfast table. The station suddenly felt smaller, more fragile. A thin shell of metal and insulation between us and something we did not understand. Warren opened his mouth, probably to offer another reasonable explanation. But before he could speak, Kira pointed out the window. What is that? We all turned to look, and my stomach dropped. There was someone standing outside, maybe 50 yards from the station, just standing there in the snow, motionless. A figure in dark clothing, facing the station, not moving at all. In the dim grey twilight of Arctic noon, I could see it clearly. A human shape against the white background, as still as a statue. Who the hell is that? Warren was on his feet, moving toward the window. We are 100 miles from anywhere. No one should be out here. We watched the figure for 10 minutes. It did not move, did not shift its weight, did not turn its head, did not wave or signal or do anything a person would do if they needed help. It just stood there, a dark shape against the white snow, watching us. or facing us at least. From this distance, I could not see if it had eyes at all. Warren went to the radio to call for help or information, but it was still dead, just static, no matter what frequency he tried. Maybe it is someone from another station, Kira said. Maybe they got lost, they need help. We should go out there. Then why are they just standing there? I asked. If they need help, why not come to the door? Why not wave or shout or do anything? No one had an answer. We kept watching. The figure kept standing. The minutes stretched on, each one feeling longer than the last. I blinked, just a normal blink, just a fraction of a second with my eyes closed. When I opened them, the figure was gone, not walking away, not retreating into the snow, just gone, vanished, like it had never been there at all. One moment it was standing 50 yards away, and the next moment there was nothing but empty tundra. We searched the area with binoculars, scanning the snow in every direction. Nothing. No footprints that we could see, though the wind could have covered them. No sign that anyone had been there at all. Just white and grey and the faint shimmer of the aurora on the horizon. That evening, the radio crackled to life on its own. We were in the common room, no one wanting to be alone, when the static suddenly resolved into that harsh emergency broadcast tone. We all froze, all three of us staring at the radio, waiting. The voice came through clearer this time. Alaska emergency alert for North Slope region. Shelter in place immediately. Do not go outside. Do not open doors to anyone. Do not trust the mimics. They copy. They learn. They are not human. Repeat. Do not trust the mimics. Then static. Then silence. Warren grabbed the radio, tried to respond. His voice tight with an urgency I had never heard from him before. This is Keller Outpost. Do you copy? We need more information. What are mimics? Do you copy? Please respond. Nothing. The radio was dead again, as if it had never worked at all. We sat in silence for a long time after that. The word hung in the air between us, a word that should not have meant anything, but suddenly meant everything. Mimics. What does that mean? Kira asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. What are they talking about? What copies? I do not know, I said. Warren was quiet, staring at the radio like he could will it back to life. For the first time since I had known him, he looked scared. Warren, who had survived blizzards and bear encounters and 30 years of Arctic winters. Warren, who always had a reasonable explanation, who always knew what to do. He was scared, and that scared me more than anything else. Around 8 that night, someone knocked on the station door. 3 sharp knocks, a pause, then 3 more. We all froze. No one was supposed to be out here. No one could be out here. Not in this cold, not in this darkness, not 100 miles from nowhere. The nearest human beings were in Coldfoot, 100 miles away, and they had no reason to send anyone out here without calling first. Warren moved toward the door, and I grabbed his arm. The alert said not to open doors. It could be someone who needs help, Warren said. We cannot just leave them out there to freeze. That is a death sentence. It said, do not trust the mimics. It said they copy. Before Warren could respond, a voice came from outside. It was Kira's voice, exactly Kira's voice, calling out in fear and desperation. "Please, let me in. I am locked out. It is so cold. Please, help me." But Kira was standing right next to me. Her face had gone white as the snow outside, and she grabbed my arm so hard her fingers dug into my flesh through my sleeve. "That is my voice," she whispered. "That is exactly my voice." The thing outside kept talking, kept pleading, kept saying things that only Kira would know. It mentioned her mother's name, Rosa. It mentioned her hometown, Santa Fe. It talked about her research, her dissertation, her advisor back at the university. Details that no stranger could possibly know. "Please," the voice begged. "I do not know what is happening. I was outside checking the equipment and the door locked behind me. Please, you have to let me in. I'm going to die out here." Kira was shaking beside me, trembling so hard I could feel it through my own body. "I never went outside," she said. "I have been inside all day. I never went outside. How does it know those things? How does it know my mother's name?" The voice kept calling for nearly an hour. It cried, it screamed, it begged in ways that made my heart ache, that made me want to throw open the door and help whoever was out there, whatever was out there. It sounded so real, so scared, so human. But we did not open the door. Eventually, the voice stopped. The night went quiet, that heavy Arctic silence that presses against your ears, and we sat in the common room, none of us willing to be alone, none of us able to sleep, staring at the door like it might burst open at any moment. "We need some way to verify each other," Warren said finally. He looked older than he had that morning, grey and tired, the lines in his face deeper than I had ever noticed. "If these things can copy us, we need to know who is real." "How?" Kira asked. "If they copy everything, how would we know?" "We share something," I said. The idea came to me suddenly, though I was not sure it would work. Something we have never told anyone. Something from before the station. Something personal. If one of us starts acting strange, the others can test them with questions only the real person would know. It sounded weak even as I said it. If the mimics copied memories, they would know anything we shared. But it was better than nothing. It was something to hold on to in a situation where nothing made sense. Warren went first. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. And when he spoke, his voice was different than I had ever heard it. Raw, broken. He told us about his daughter Emily. She died in a car accident 10 years ago, hit by a drunk driver on her way home from work. Warren had been at a conference when it happened, giving a presentation about Arctic ice formations, while his daughter was bleeding out on a highway in Idaho. He did not make it to the hospital in time. He never got to say goodbye. He never forgave himself for not being there. He never stopped dreaming about her. Every night for 10 years, he said, he dreamed about that phone call, about the voice on the other end telling him his daughter was gone. His voice broke when he talked about her. I had known Warren for 3 months, had shared meals with him and worked alongside him, and never once seen him show that kind of emotion. This was real. This was something that mattered, something he had carried alone for a decade. Kira went next. She told us about her brother David, who disappeared when she was 12. He went out to ride his bike one summer afternoon and never came back. They searched for weeks, months. They never found a body, never found the bike, never found any trace of him at all. The case went cold. Her parents never recovered. Her mother still lights a candle for him every year on his birthday. Kira still looks for his face in crowds sometimes, still wakes up from dreams where she finally finds him. She has spent her whole adult life studying migration patterns, she said, because some part of her is still trying to understand how something can just disappear. Then it was my turn. I told them about the fire, about how my parents died when I was 19, and how it was my fault. I had been drinking that night, came home late, fell asleep on the couch with a cigarette burning. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later with burns on my arms and legs and the knowledge that my mother and father were dead because of me. The official report said electrical fault. The insurance paid out. No one ever knew the truth except me. I have never told anyone about that fire. Not my therapist, not my friends, not the women I have dated or the colleagues I have worked with. It is the darkest thing I carry, the weight that never gets lighter no matter how many years pass. Until that night, it was mine alone. We sat with our secrets, the three of us, bound together by the worst things we had ever done and the worst things that had ever happened to us. The station felt different after that, smaller, but also safer. Like we had built walls that nothing could breach. I thought it would help. I thought sharing our pain would make us trust each other. I was wrong. Around midnight, I saw something at the window. A face pressed against the glass, staring in. It was my face, my own face, with my own features, my own stubble, my own scar above my left eyebrow from a childhood accident. But it was not a reflection. The angle was wrong, the glass too thick. My reflection would have been fainter and would have moved when I moved. This face was just staring, motionless, with a smile that was too wide for my face. A smile I had never made in my life, as a smile that showed too many teeth and stretched the skin in ways that looked painful. And the eyes did not blink. I stumbled backward, shouting, knocking over my chair. Warren and Kira came running from where they had been checking other windows. By the time they reached me, the face was gone. But we could see footprints in the snow outside. They led up to the window and then just stopped. They did not lead away, did not circle back, did not continue in any direction. They just ended, like whoever made them had simply ceased to exist, or like whatever made them did not walk away the way people walk. Later, when Warren was checking the other windows, Kira pulled me aside. Her face was serious, her voice barely above a whisper. "How do we know he is really Warren?" "What do you mean?" "He was the one who dismissed the first alert. He was the one who wanted to open the door. What if something got to him already? What if the real Warren is out there in the snow? And the thing in here with us is something else wearing his face?" I looked at Warren's back as he moved from window to window, checking the locks, the seals, looking for any way something could get in. He moved like Warren. He talked like Warren. He knew everything Warren knew, but so would a mimic. That was the whole point. He told us about his daughter, I said. He cried. If they copy memories, they would know about his daughter. They would know how to cry. The alert said they learn. I did not have an answer for that. I realized, standing there in the dim light of the station, that I had no way to be sure about anyone. Not Warren, not Kira, not even myself. How would I know if I had been replaced? Would I even remember being real? The next morning, Warren did not come out of his room. We knocked on his door, called his name, waited for a response that never came. The silence stretched on, broken only by the hum of the heater and the whistle of wind outside. Finally, we opened the door. Warren was sitting on his bunk, staring at the wall. Not moving, not blinking, just sitting there like he had been turned off. He turned to look at us when the door opened, and something was wrong with his face. The expression was off, like a mask that did not quite fit right, like someone who had learned what a face was supposed to do from looking at photographs, but had never actually felt the emotions behind the expressions. He smiled. "Good morning. What is for breakfast?" The smile was too wide. It stayed on his face too long, frozen there even as he spoke. And his eyes did not crinkle the way they always did when Warren smiled, the way they had crinkled for 30 years. I asked him about his daughter, about Emily, about the conference, about the guilt that had eaten him alive for 10 years. He hesitated for just a moment, a fraction of a second, barely noticeable. Then he said, "She died in a car accident 10 years ago. I was at a conference." The words were right, but everything else was wrong. His voice was flat, rehearsed, empty. The pain that had been there before, the raw grief that had cracked his voice and filled his eyes with mist, was completely gone. Kira asked what Emily's name was. Warren had mentioned her name the night before, but it was buried in the story, not emphasized. A detail you might miss if you were not paying attention. Warren's smile faltered. Just for a second, a flicker of something underneath, and then it was back, wider than before. I would rather not talk about it. We left him in his room and retreated to the common room. Neither of us said what we were both thinking, but we both knew. Something was wrong with Warren. Something had changed in the night. Something had been replaced or copied or taken. We agreed to stay together, all three of us, in the main room, no one going anywhere alone. But Warren kept wandering toward the door, kept suggesting we should go outside, check the equipment, look for the figure we had seen. His arguments were logical, reasonable. We had work to do, responsibilities, things that needed to be done regardless of strange radio alerts and voices in the dark. But there was something underneath his words, a hunger, an eagerness that did not fit. Warren had spent 30 years in the Arctic, being cautious, being careful, respecting the cold and the dark. This Warren wanted us to go outside. This Warren wanted us to open the door. The generator failed around 6 that evening. The lights flickered and died, plunging the station into darkness. Without power, we had no heat. Without heat, the station would become uninhabitable within hours. The cold would seep through the walls, through the windows, through every crack and gap. We would freeze to death by morning. Warren stood up immediately. "I will fix it. The generator is in the outbuilding, probably just a frozen fuel line. I have fixed it a dozen times before." No one goes outside, I said.
Would you rather freeze?
Warren's voice was sharp, irritated, and for a moment he sounded like the old Warren, the real Warren.
The generator is 30 feet away. I will be there and back in 5 minutes.
He was right. The practical part of my brain knew he was right. We could not survive the night without power. But the rest of me remembered the alert, the mimics, the voice that had sounded exactly like Kira, begging to be let in.
Before I could stop him, Warren was pulling on his coat and opening the door, disappearing into the darkness before we could react.
Kira and I stood at the window and watched. We could see his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, moving toward the outbuilding where the generator hummed and coughed. We watched him reach the door, open it, go inside. The flashlight beam disappeared. Silence. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. The power did not come back on. Then we heard Warren's voice outside the door.
It is fixed. Let me in. I'm freezing out here. But the lights were still off. The heater was still dead. Nothing had been fixed.
Warren, I called through the door. The power is still out. A pause. Then, just let me in. I will explain inside. Please. It is so cold. We did not open the door. A few minutes later, we heard another voice. Also Warren's voice, but coming from a different direction, from the other side of the station, from somewhere near the back windows. Help me, please. Something is out here. It looks like me. Oh God, it looks like me. Please, you have to help me. 2 Warrens, both calling for help, both sounding desperate, both sounding exactly like the man who had shared his deepest pain with us just hours before. Kira was crying, her hands pressed over her mouth.
What do we do? What if one of them is real? What if he is dying out there?
Which one? I asked.
How do we know which one to help?
She did not have an answer. Neither did I. The voices kept calling. They begged. They pleaded. They said things only Warren would know. Details about his life, about his daughter, about the years of guilt and grief. Both of them, from opposite sides of the station, wearing my friend's voice like a mask. Eventually, both voices went silent. The cold grew worse. We survived the night huddled together under every blanket we could find, shivering so hard I thought my teeth would shatter. The temperature inside the station dropped below freezing, our breath visible in the darkness, ice forming on the inside of the windows. When the grey twilight of Arctic noon finally came, we looked out the windows. Warren was lying in the snow about 20 feet from the station, not moving. His body was covered in frost, his reaching hand frozen in place, stretching toward the door we never opened. And near the generator outbuilding, another figure was lying in the snow, also not moving, also covered in frost, also Warren. We waited until the light was as strong as it would get, maybe 30 minutes of dim grey illumination. Then we opened the door, and the cold hit us like a physical force, stealing our breath, burning our exposed skin. We approached the nearest figure first. Warren, frozen solid, his face twisted in an expression of terror, his eyes open and staring at nothing. Dead, definitely dead. Then we approached the second figure. Also Warren, identical in every way. Same face, same clothes, same build.
But this one was smiling, that too wide smile, frozen on his face, his dead eyes staring at nothing, but somehow seeming amused. 2 Warrens, both dead in the snow, and we could not tell which one had been real. We got the generator running. The problem was simple, just what Warren had said, a frozen fuel line. With power restored, the heater kicking back on, we tried the radio. This time, we reached with someone. A voice from Coldfoot, broken and terrified. A woman who said her name was Dr. Marsh, who said she was coordinating what was left of the emergency response. They came out of the tundra, she said. No one knows from where. No one knows why. They copy people perfectly. Memories, mannerisms, everything. And once they copy someone, her voice trailed off. The originals do not last long. What are they? I asked. Where did they come from? We do not know. We do not know anything except that they are spreading. We have lost contact with half the stations in the region. We are sending helicopters to evacuate who we can. When? Tomorrow. Maybe. If the weather holds. She paused, and I heard something in her voice that sounded like fear. How many of you are left at Keller Outpost? 2, I said. Just 2. Another pause, longer this time. Then quietly, are you sure? The question hung in the air. I looked at Kira, standing beside me. Her face pale and exhausted, but still her face. Still the woman I had spent 3 months working beside. At least, I thought it was. Yes, I said. I am sure. But I was not sure. I was not sure of anything anymore. The helicopter came the next day. A small craft with 2 men inside, a pilot and a rescue worker in heavy Arctic gear. They landed about 50 yards from the station, and the rescue worker approached the door. He knocked. 3 sharp knocks, a pause, then 3 more. The same knock that had come that first night, when something wearing Kira's voice had begged to be let in. I hesitated, my hand on the door, my heart pounding. Hello, the rescue worker called. Is anyone in there? We are here to evacuate you. Dr. Marsh sent us. His voice sounded normal. His face, visible through the small window in the door, looked normal. Everything about him seemed exactly right. But so had Warren at first. Kira moved toward the door. I grabbed her arm. How do we know they are real? I asked. How do we know the mimics have not reached Coldfoot? We do not know, she said, but we cannot stay here forever. The supplies will run out. The radio will die again. Sooner or later, we have to trust someone. She opened the door. The rescue worker smiled, a normal smile, the right width, held for the right amount of time. Thank God. We thought we might be too late. Come on, the weather is turning. We need to go now. We followed him to the helicopter. I looked back at the station one last time, at the 2 bodies still lying in the snow, at the place that had been my home for 3 months, and was now just a frozen tomb. The pilot nodded at us as we climbed in. He looked normal too, tired and stressed, but normal. The rescue worker was talking, asking questions about what had happened, how we had survived, whether we had seen anything else out there. His voice was calm, professional. His smile never wavered. Never wavered. The whole time he talked, The whole time he asked questions and listened to our answers and wrote notes on a clipboard. That smile stayed fixed on his face. I looked at Kira. She was watching him too. Our eyes met, and I saw my own fear reflected back at me. But neither of us said anything. The helicopter lifted off, rising above Keller Outpost, above the bodies in the snow, above the endless white tundra that stretched away in every direction. I watched the station get smaller below us, watched it disappear into the landscape, swallowed by the snow and the darkness. The rescue worker kept talking, kept smiling, kept asking questions in that calm, professional voice. And I thought about what the voice on the radio had said, that the mimics were spreading, that they had lost contact with half the stations in the region, that no one knew where they came from or how to stop them. I thought about Coldfoot, where we were headed, a town full of people, a town full of potential copies. I thought about the rescue worker's smile, frozen on his face, never fading, never changing, and I realized the truth. The mimics do not need to chase us. They do not need to hunt us down or break through our doors. They just need to wait. Because sooner or later, everyone trusts someone. A voice on the radio, a knock on the door, a smile from a stranger who says he is here to help. That is how they get in. That is how they spread. I am in Fairbanks now. The doctors say I am suffering from exposure, from trauma, from something they cannot quite diagnose. They say Kira is in another room, recovering, asking about me. But I have not seen her since we landed. I have not seen anyone I recognize since we landed. The nurses smile at me. The doctors smile at me. Everyone smiles, all the time. And I cannot tell anymore if those smiles are real or if they are masks, if the people wearing them are people at all, or just things that have learned what people are supposed to look like. I catch my own reflection in the window sometimes, and I watch to see if it does what I do, if it moves when I move, if its smile matches mine. So far, it does. But I am not sure that means anything anymore. I am not sure of anything. If you are reading this, if this message gets out, I need you to understand something. Do not trust the mimics, but more than that, do not trust yourself. Because if they can copy us perfectly, memories and all, then how would you know if you had been replaced? Would you feel different? Would you remember being real? Or would you just wake up one day with a smile on your face that you cannot control, with words coming out of your mouth that you did not choose, with the terrible certainty that the person you used to be is gone and something else is living in your skin? I do not know what I am anymore. I do not know if Kira is real. I do not know if anyone is real. All I know is that the mimics are spreading, and they look just like us. And there is no way to tell them apart from the real thing. Maybe there never was. Maybe the real thing was always an illusion, and we just never noticed until now. The nurse is coming to check on me again. She is smiling. She is always smiling. I am smiling too. I cannot seem to stop.